Think about the last time you started a new job. Or maybe you joined a new social group or went to this dinner party where you just didn't know anyone at all.
Oh, yeah, that
Mm.
classic anxiety.
Right. Did you catch yourself shape-shifting just a little bit? Like maybe you bit your tongue to read the room, or you laughed at a joke that frankly wasn't really funny?
We all do it.
Or think about staring at an empty text box on social media, hesitating for 20 minutes before posting something because it felt just a little too vulnerable, a little too, well, you.
It is an incredibly exhausting way to move through the world, honestly, but it is also a nearly universal experience.
It really is. And that's exactly our mission for today's deep dive. We are unpacking a single, really comprehensive video essay that breaks down the psychology and the deeply embedded evolutionary roots behind one of our most paralyzing collective fears.
The fear of being seen.
Exactly. This source digs into the evolutionary tribe mentality, this wild concept of the goblins in the basement, and most importantly, the actual neurological mechanics of how to finally stop hiding.
To start, we really have to completely reframe how we view this anxiety.
Right.
If you struggle with the fear of being seen or being truly known by others, you need to understand that this is not a personal failing. It is not a lack of confidence.
Which is such a relief to hear, honestly.
Right. We aren't talking about stage fright or imposter syndrome here. We are talking about human survival mechanics.
Yeah.
This fear is a biological feature, not a bug.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to fix the fear, we first have to understand why it feels so intensely physical, like why your chest tightens or your stomach just drops when you're about to express a genuine, unfiltered opinion.
Yeah, that visceral reaction.
Exactly. And the creator of our source traces this right back to the evolutionary science of belonging. They argue that at its core, the fear of being seen is actually the fear of rejection. And rejection to our ancient brain, well, it means death.
It literally does.
Yeah.
Because if we look at how humans are built, we are profoundly relationally dependent creatures. It takes human babies years to become independent compared to other animals.
Oh, wow, right.
Yes. So in our hunter-gatherer days, the tribe mentality wasn't just some social structure. It was the only way to survive. You were born into a single small group of maybe 50 to 100 people.
And you stayed there your whole life.
Exactly. You were born, raised, married, all within that tribe. Everyone had highly specific, interdependent roles. Hunters, child rearers, foragers.
You completely depended on the collective.
You had to meet your basic physiological needs. Food, shelter, protection from predators. You couldn't do it alone.
I like to think of our nervous system as running on this incredibly outdated operating system, like the hardware is designed for a world that just doesn't exist anymore.
That's a great way to put it.
Because back then, if you started acting wildly different from everyone else, like if you broke the social norms of the group, you became a liability.
And liabilities were cast out, they were exiled.
Yeah.
And in the prehistoric wilderness, an exiled human could not survive alone.
They just starve.
Or get eaten. Over thousands of years, natural selection favored the humans who were hypersensitive to the social dynamics of their group. So our brains literally wired social rejection and physical death into the exact same neural pathway.
Wait, I have to push back a little here. I get the ancient history part totally. But are you saying that when I'm sitting in my home office, physically safe, and I'm just afraid of, say, disagreeing with my boss on a Zoom meeting, my brain is literally interpreting that as if I speak up, I will be exiled into the forest and eaten by a bear?
On a subconscious nervous system level, yes.
Absolutely. That is wild.
It is, but the amygdala, that's the threat detection center of your brain. It doesn't differentiate between a digital Zoom call and a prehistoric campfire.
Just sees a threat.
Right. It
Yeah.
just registers the social risk and sounds the alarm. It says, do not rock the boat or you will be abandoned. And if you are abandoned, you die.
Wow.
So we naturally repress any personality traits that aren't deemed socially acceptable by our current environment because our biology is screaming at us to prioritize belonging over authenticity.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because our brains are so terrified of this evolutionary exile, we come up with this elaborate coping mechanism.
Yeah, we really do.
If we can't show our true, messy selves because it's biologically dangerous, we create a fake, polished version of ourselves to present to the world.
We do. And the source material uses a fantastic phrase for what we are hiding behind that polish. It calls those hidden parts the goblins in the basement.
Goblins in the basement. I love that so much.
It's so vivid, right?
Mm.
It refers to the psychological concept of the shadow self.
Which we all have.
Exactly. Everybody has trauma. Everybody has insecurities, strange quirks, messy emotional responses. We all get petty or jealous, or we lose our temper and shout at the dog or the kids.
Right.
We all have these goblins. But society generally only approves of and rewards the confident, funny, successful traits.
So we take all the messy stuff, we literally lock it in the basement, and we build this incredibly performative persona for the main floor of the
Oh,
house.
yes, exactly.
I used to think about this like a social media highlight reel,
Mm.
Like handing the world this highly edited movie trailer of your life while hiding the actual messy movie.
That's a really good analogy.
But it's actually more insidious than that. It is like paying protection money to the mob. You build this fake persona to buy temporary safety from rejection, but the cost just keeps going up.
Oh, it's so draining.
It takes massive amounts of mental and emotional energy to keep the mask from slipping. But why is playing this exhausting character actually the safe route for our brains?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it really comes down to the mechanics of a pain hierarchy. The persona acts as a shield.
How so?
Let's say you present this highly curated, watered-down version of yourself to the world, just 50% of who you are. And let's say someone rejects that persona.
It hurts, obviously.
It hurts, of course, but internally, your core ego remains intact. Your brain rationalizes it by saying, well, they didn't reject the real me. They rejected the representative I sent to the meeting. Yeah. My true vulnerable self, the other 50%, is still safely hidden in the basement, completely untouched by their judgment.
So if the fake you gets rejected, it's survivable. But if you show your true, unfiltered self and that gets rejected, that feels like a psychological death sentence.
It does. It feels vastly safer to have a performative personality rejected than your full, honest self. But the trade-off is this massive, compounding internal shame.
Because you know you're faking it.
Exactly. You might get validation, promotions, approval for this watered-down persona, but you can't actually internalize that love.
Right.
Because the more people applaud the fake you, the more your brain whispers. If they only knew my big, dirty secret, if they only saw the goblins I'm hiding, they would turn on me in a heartbeat.
You become completely isolated by your own armor.
You really do.
You feel like a fraud in your own life.
Mm.
And eventually, like we said, the protection money bankrupts you. The sheer exhaustion of keeping up the act forces a breaking point.
It has to, eventually.
You decide you are tired of the persona, you want to show your true self, and you want to level up. But, according to the source, deciding to be authentic throws you into this highly vulnerable transition period. They call it the Bambi phase.
I really appreciate how the creator of the video essay illustrates this. She does it beautifully through her own personal journey of visibility.
Right, because it's not just an overnight thing.
No, not at all. She walks us through how stepping into authenticity isn't a one-time event. It happens in stages. For her, it started very small. She began by posting private, unlisted videos online just for her high school friends.
A very safe, controlled, small tribe.
Exactly. But then you outgrow that room.
You always do.
Yeah. So she felt a calling to share mindset and spiritual content on YouTube, which was a much more public arena. And later, she escalated to hosting a live 3-day event, leading these meditations in front of a real-time audience.
Which is terrifying.
Absolutely terrifying. And finally, she reached a massive milestone, appearing on a huge, highly exposing podcast. But each of those steps required bringing more of the basement into the light, activating and exposing a new, previously hidden part of herself.
And that brings us to the mechanics of the Bambi phase. Whenever you step into a new level of visibility, you have to accept that you are going to be the minimally viable version of yourself in that new space.
You really are.
You are going to be unpolished, imperfect, shaky on your feet, literally like a baby deer taking its first steps. I think about this for the listener, whether they are starting a new business, putting their art out into the world, or stepping into a leadership role.
It applies to all of it.
But I have to say, human nature absolutely hates this. It is incredibly painful to accept being the clumsy beta version when your internal standards for yourself are so high. We want to debut as the polished, flawless, final product immediately.
Oh, for sure. What's fascinating here is the biological necessity of that clumsiness.
Yeah.
You cannot skip the Bambi phase. Growth only happens through these uncomfortable growing pains.
Right.
Think of it like a crab molting. To grow, the crab has to completely shed its hard, safe shell. For a short window of time, it is entirely soft and vulnerable to predators.
It's totally exposed.
Yeah. But if it refuses to shed the shell, because it's afraid of that vulnerability, it will literally die trapped inside its own armor.
Wow.
You have to endure the exposure of being the unpolished beta version to build the new neurological pathways required for the next level. If you refuse to be Bambi, you will just stay hidden in the previous level forever.
Which means if you survive the molting process, you are out there without your armor, and you are inevitably going to face feedback. Or full-out criticism.
Oh, it's unavoidable.
And the source makes it clear how you handle incoming judgment while you are in the Bambi phase dictates whether you keep growing or whether you panic and retreat back to the basement.
The most powerful tool you have in this phase is humility, paired with a very specific framework, and that is using triggers as a mirror.
A mirror.
Right. When someone criticizes you, the biological instinct is to get defensive to protect the ego.
Yeah.
But growth requires dropping the ego, pausing that reaction and asking, is there truth to this? Is there something I actually need to learn here?
The source gives a really relatable example of this with the late joke anecdote.
Yes, it was such a good story.
The creator's friend jokingly pointed out that she was always late, and it triggered her intensely. She got furious. But upon reflection, she realized she wasn't actually mad at the friend.
No, not at all.
She was triggered because the friend held up a mirror to an internal truth that she was deeply ashamed of. She struggled with time management. She desperately wanted to change it. And that casual joke poked right at that raw goblin in her basement.
Exactly. That visceral physical reaction, the tight chest, the heat in your face is the map.
The map to the goblin.
Yeah. The source suggests that if a piece of criticism triggers you, it means it is successfully hooked into a nerve of truth within you. It is showing you exactly where your shadow work still needs to be done.
Okay, I get using it as a mirror if there's a grain of truth. But what if the criticism is just completely baseless? Like, does the source expect us to psychoanalyze internet trolls or toxic coworkers who are just projecting their own misery?
Not at all. That's the beauty of this framework. If you truly know yourself and someone criticizes you for something that genuinely is not true, it doesn't trigger that physiological fear response.
Oh, really?
Think about it. If someone walked up to you and aggressively insulted you for having green hair and your hair is brown, you wouldn't feel shame.
I just think they were crazy.
Exactly. You would just think they were confused. When you know your own basement, baseless criticism just bounces off.
Yeah.
It becomes clear that their comment is about their own perception, not your reality. Operating this way makes you practically immune to rejection.
I love how empowering that is. It literally turns a weapon criticism into a diagnostic tool, like free coaching.
It really is.
If it hurts, it's free coaching on where I need to grow. If it doesn't hurt, it's irrelevant.
If we connect this to the bigger picture of leveling up, you have to realize that new rooms, new levels of visibility have new energetic vibrations and demands.
Right.
When you step into a higher level, there is a gap between your current self and the requirements of that new space. That gap is a mirror of the growth you still have to do.
So you have a choice.
You do. You can either shapeshift and imitate to try and fit in, which just leads you right back into the performative persona trap, or you can honestly acknowledge the gap, address the internal stuff, accept the feedback, and grow into the space.
So what does this all mean for our daily interactions? Like, we understand the theory, right? The evolutionary fear, the pain hierarchy, the Bambi phase. But how do we physically execute this in our day-to-day lives? How do we stop the nervous system from throwing us into fight or flight every time we try to be authentic?
The foundational rule the source provides here is profound. It says, you cannot be seen until you see yourself.
Okay.
The fear of being exposed to others actually stems from the parts of yourself that you are actively hiding from yourself.
So the shadow work, going down into the basement with a flashlight.
Exactly. And the source suggests a very literal, practical exercise for this. You don't just think about it. You sit down and you write out exactly what you are afraid people will see. What is the specific insecurity?
Writing it down makes it real.
Yes, the mechanism here is so important. By writing it down or pulling that insecure part out of yourself in meditation, you are physically pulling that abstract dread out of the emotional center of your brain, the amygdala, and forcing your prefrontal cortex to process it as tangible information.
You witness the fear without judgment.
Right. You let the goblin vent,
Yeah.
and then you reassure it with compassion. You literally say, I see you and I accept you.
Because nobody can use a truth against you if you have already accepted it about yourself. Once you own the goblin, it loses all its leverage.
That's the secret.
But, after we do that internal processing, we still have to walk out the front door. We still have to engage with the tribe. The source talks about this concept of microdosing authenticity, which I find really fascinating from a biological standpoint.
It is the safest way to rewire the brain because you cannot drop your performative mask completely all at once.
No, that would be a disaster.
If you spent 20 years curating a specific image, abruptly acting completely different would overwhelm your nervous system and send you right into a panic spiral. So instead, you microdose it. You take tiny, manageable steps.
Like expressing a slightly unpopular opinion about a movie in a casual conversation. Or maybe posting a photo online that isn't perfectly curated.
Yes, and when you do that, your body will brace for impact, your heart rate will spike, expecting that evolutionary exile we talked about.
Yeah.
But then you wait.
And nothing happens.
Nothing happens. The bomb doesn't go off. The tribe doesn't banish you. You don't starve in the woods. By taking these microdoses, you allow your nervous system to experience a visceral, physical realization.
That you showed a piece of your true self and you survived.
Exactly. The brain slowly unlinks visibility from death.
But let's be totally honest about the consequences here for a second. If you start showing your true, weird, messy self, you are absolutely going to lose people. You will lose resonance with the friends or followers or colleagues who only liked your fake persona because it served them in some way.
You will. That's true. And that is a really painful part of the molting process.
Yeah.
But this brings us to the incredible advantage of the modern era.
Right, because we aren't prehistoric anymore.
Right. Unlike our prehistoric ancestors, we are no longer trapped in a single small village. With billions of people online, global travel, limitless digital communities, it is finally biologically safe to be weird.
You can go find your modern soul tribe.
Precisely. You will lose the people who are attached to the mask, but your true soul tribe, the people who will profoundly resonate with exactly who you are, they cannot find you if you remain invisible.
Oh, that's such a good point.
If you do not broadcast your authentic frequency, they simply won't know you exist.
Think about what you are sacrificing by staying hidden, by playing it safe in your performative persona. You might be avoiding the sting of rejection, sure, but you are also sacrificing true, vibrationally aligned, intimate connections.
It's a huge cost.
You are trading deep, sustaining love for cheap, exhausting validation.
It's the ultimate catch-22 of visibility. The source summarizes it perfectly. You cannot learn to swim by standing on the sidelines watching other people swim and analyzing the biomechanics of the stroke.
Right.
Eventually, you just have to get in the water.
Yeah.
You have to allow yourself to be seen, risk the initial shock of the cold, and realize that your body actually knows how to float.
We've gone on quite a journey today. We started by moving past that evolutionary biological fear of rejection, realizing that our anxiety is just an ancient operating system trying to keep us from starving in the wilderness.
Yeah, just trying to keep us safe.
Right. And we explored the necessity of going into the basement and actually befriending our goblins, rather than just building a thicker door to hide them.
We unpack the mechanics of the Bambi phase, accepting the clumsiness of molting your old shell, and learning how to use the visceral, physical reactions of our triggers as diagnostic mirrors for our own growth.
And finally, we looked at how to practically microdose authenticity, retraining the nervous system so we can strip off the performative persona and actually act as a beacon for our true soul tribe.
That's a lot of work.
It's a lot to process, yeah, and it requires a lot of courage. But the mechanical shifts we've talked about are incredibly liberating.
It is the work of a lifetime. But stepping out of the basement is really the only path to genuine human connection.
Which brings me to one final thought I want to leave you with, something for you to chew on long after we wrap up here. We spent this whole time talking about how our fear of being seen is deeply tied to ancient survival, right? And how we spent centuries perfecting these fake, polished personas to protect ourselves.
Right.
But look at where society is heading right now. We are entering the age of AI, of deepfakes, of hyper-curated, artificially generated perfection. Soon, it will be completely impossible to trust the polished, flawless personas we see on our screens.
Oh, absolutely.
So if absolute perfection can be faked by a machine in 2 seconds, will our raw, messy, unpolished, goblin-filled authenticity actually become the only true currency of human connection we have left?
That is a phenomenal question. As perfection becomes entirely artificial, Imperfection might literally become our only verifiable proof of humanity.
Exactly. So maybe that highly edited movie trailer isn't what people want to see anymore. Maybe the messy behind-the-scenes footage is the only thing we'll actually trust moving forward. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the source material. Stay curious, give yourself some grace if you're currently in the Bambi phase, and see if you can start microdosing your own authenticity today. We'll catch you next time.